What was a perfectly normal situation for you in the 80s 90s that the younger generation just can't relate to? Sitting by the radio waiting for your favorite new song to come on so you could record it onto a cassette tape and hoping the jackass DJ didn't talk over the first 45 seconds. Spoiler alert, he always did. I tried to explain this to my daughter. She's 10. AMD, her eyes glazed over, and I think she didn't care or didn't believe me. She was like, "Okay mom." As someone who was a child, she just doesn't care. I was thinking the other day about how I applied for out-of-state college, 1989. How did I even do that? Did I write to them and ask for an application, to fill it out, and mail it back? When I applied to graduate school, 1993, how did I even know which schools had my program? Did I go to the library or something? Sitting here in 2020 imagining doing those things with no internet, it seems impossible. But since I don't even remember how I accomplished it, it must have been pretty mundane at the time. Sounds like a freaking hassle, if you ask me. I remember having to go register for classes in person. You'd get a random appointment time and go to college to see a registration person. You hope you were lucky enough that all the courses you needed to take weren't full yet. If they were, you'd need to find another course on the spot, changing your whole schedule and life, or using the telephone version of registration later. Going to a restaurant and being asked, would you like to sit in smoking or non-smoking? There were smoking sections on airplanes. I can remember, as a kid of about 6, being super sick with a chest cold. My parents had to work, so my grandpa came to stay with me, and just like Perta Fork in The Princess Bride, he sat by my bed and read me stories, all the while chain smoking. I was coughing my ass off, and he was trying to comfort me while filling my room with smoke. Nobody even thought about it. Crap was weird in olden times. Mom probably gave me some codeine-laced cough syrup when she got home. Original lean supper. Going out into the world with no cell, a map in hand, hoping to find the new address you've never been to, and then in addition to that, hoping the people you were going to meet up would get there. If you got there and your friends weren't there, the most you could do was ask the business to lend you their phone, or walk to a payphone and call your friends' house phones to see if they picked up. If they didn't, you had no way of knowing if they were late, selling you out, or dead. The concept of getting lost on a car ride is pretty much extinct now. I think about all the times I had to print out directions from MapQuest to find some place in advance. Now you can just type in an address or say something like gas stations near me and you get step-by-step directions with Anita. Which also means the trope of "are we there yet?" is made an irrelevant question, as the kids also have phones and can see exactly how far they have to go. When I got my first GPS, which was a brick that I connected to a pocket PC, I took it with us on a trip to Kansas City. My wife made fun of me because we'd been to KC 100 times and knew where we were going. Our normal exit was closed for construction, and the GPS guided us to a different one and through a neighborhood that we'd never been to before. My wife had a sudden realization that we only knew one route to anything in KC and would have been hopelessly lost without GPS. It was world changing. There being nothing on television, I watched the Weather Network for longer than I should when I was younger because it was better than soaps and sometimes nothing was on. With streaming services and even YouTube/shorter videos like TikTok, you can be watching new content 24/7. Little overwhelming. We had a local access channel that was just 3 colored horizontal bars. In the top bar, text told you the time and the temperature. In the bottom bar, text told you the contact info for the cable company. In the middle, you could pay to have a screen of text. The movie. Theaters listed movie times. Restaurants listed the specials. Parents would post birthday congratulations for their kids. Weirdos would post rambling screeds about the mayor. Sometimes you'd sit through 24 screens before learning that the movie you wanted to see had already started downtown, but you'd know that Donna's granny wished her a happy 13th birthday. Wow, I just had a super deep nostalgia trip reading this. Thanks for making my day. I feel like kids today will never know boredom like I experienced when I was a kid. We were poor and didn't have any video games. There was no Candy Crush on your phone. No Netflix. If your friends were busy, you'd just have to make up your own game or watch one of the 5 videos you actually owned for the 347th time. But even that wasn't always possible if your parents/s wanted you out of the house for a while. So you'd just walk around hoping to run into some kids you knew. I also remember my sister and I would watch MTV, wait for our favorite music video to come on, then record it on VHS. We had 2 tapes full of music videos. I wish I had those tapes now. There were some bangers on it. I didn't get bored. My cousin's best friend and I invented a game called Friends for Life that kept us amused for hours. We'd get the phone book, get a stranger's name and address and call them. We'd say that we were phoning from a charity called Friends for Life and we find volunteers to befriend friendless people. We'd tell the person we'd called that their GP had referred them to us because he was worried about their mental health as they didn't have any friends. We'd say that we had a volunteer willing to spend an hour a week with them for a cup of tea and a chat, and what day and time would be convenient. The person we'd called would get angry and offended and insist that they did have friends and they didn't need our services. We'd say please, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. We deal with friendless people every day. They'd usually angrily hang up on us, so we'd then get their address from the phone book and send them a follow-up letter saying our volunteer was coming round for a cup of tea on a particular date and time. We even had some headed paper printed up with a logo and motto we invented. The logo was 2 hands holding each other, and the motto was, Friends for Life, befriending the friendless. My friend's dad had a PO box, and he said we could use it, so we put the PO box number as the return address. We got some angry letters back. The final person we called, an old man, actually sounded pleased and said he'd like us to find him a friend. This was something we hadn't prepared for and we didn't know what to say, so we hung up and never played Friends for Life again. My heart is breaking for that last old man. This is more 90s early zeros, but the ability to just not be reached sometimes, and that was okay. It stresses me out that there's this social pressure to be available at all times, and people get upset with you if you don't respond to a text fast enough, etc. But as a kid we'd call each other on the home phone sometimes, and if you didn't pick up it was just assumed you were busy and nobody was actually upset with you over it. Obviously I love being able to keep in contact with friends on a more regular basis, but the constant pressure to be accessible to people 24/7 or you're some kind of bad friend is too much and it really does a number on my anxiety. I miss being able to call/text/message someone back at my leisure and not have to have a good enough explanation ready as to why I was ignoring that person. I've intentionally made myself like this again, and I feel much better for it. I do use social media, but only on the computer. I'll log in for 10 minutes or so every few days to check and reply to any messages. People have got used to me being like this and usually take their time to reply to me, but it means we exchange 1 or 2 quite long messages a week instead of a constant stream of short ones. I don't feel pressure to be constantly available anymore, and people don't feel pressure to rush replying to me either. If we do need to talk in real time, then that's what phoning or meeting is for. Using social media only on the computer is so important. I'm on my computer for it a lot more than you are, but still, that feeling that once you're not on your laptop you're not easily reachable is so good. I got my first smartphone this summer and I intentionally only use it for health apps and games, which is really helping me have a healthy use of it. I intend to use some of the social apps when traveling, but that hasn't been an issue given, the world right now. I grew up in a very rural part of Ontario, Canada. Since there were so few households in the area, it was not profitable for the telephone company to give each home a private line. Instead, our community had a party line. Every household was on the same telephone line and you could pick up the phone receiver and hear Betty from down the road having a conversation with her sister. You would have to ask to have the line and you would have to listen for the click to know if Betty left or if she was still listening to your conversation. I remember more than once asking in the middle of my conversation, "Betty, can you please leave?" and having her respond, "Oops, sorry," and then hang up her phone. Wait, how did people call you? Every house's phone would ring, and if it wasn't meant for you, then wouldn't you have to stay on? the line until someone else answered to prevent hanging up on them, or they'd have to repeatedly call back. 4 phone numbers/houses were assigned to the same line. If you called my parents' number 838 65 57, it would ring 3 times between each pause. If the neighbors heard ring 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 pause, ring ring ring, pause, they knew not to answer. There was 4 rings between the pause. If one neighbor wanted to call another neighbor, they would dial their number and hang up. The ringing signal would be sent down the line, and when the ringing stopped, the neighbor had picked up, the caller would pick up again to speak to them. If you wanted to place a toll call, you had to do it via the operator, so they could apply the charge to the correct subscriber. My father disabled the ringer on their phone, and he put in this little device that would count the rings, and if it was the 4 rings for his house, then it would connect a bell to make the sound, and ignore all the others, so they didn't get woken up at night by someone calling another neighbor. Eventually the area got pair gain systems installed with a proper electronic box in each house that sent each person's conversation on a different frequency down the line. I was born in the mid-70s and have my clearest childhood memories during the 80s, graduated HS and college in the 90s. Here are a few of my favorites. 1. Requiring a landline to talk on the phone, even pre-cordless landline phones. Think long ass coil cords to take the phone to your bedroom for a private conversation. 2. Downloading files, online gaming, or faxing to be disconnected cause mom decided to make a call. 3. Using a paper map to go places, or relying on dubious directions like turn left at the 2nd or 3rd light, I can't remember which. 4. Going to a theater to see movie trailers, like they didn't even show them on TV. 5. For local TV channels that could only be tuned via antenna. 6 or 20 inches. 4:3 ratio TV being considered large. 7. Getting mad that there wasn't any leaded gasoline available and you need to use that crappy unleaded crap. 8. Arguing the virtues of seat belts and motorcycle helmets. Also, cars still on the road that didn't have seat belts. 9. Smoking sections on airplanes being a new thing that people were mad about. Used to be you could smoke anywhere on the plane. 10. Smoking literally everywhere. Restaurants being hazy with smoke. 11. Needing an encyclopedia set to verify facts. 12. Phones only being used for voice communication. 13. Cell phones costing hundreds of dollars per month. Making a mistake and falling asleep talking to on your cell phone and getting an $800+ bill for the month. 14. Cell phones weighed in pounds. Think 2 pounds strapped to your belt. 15. Hardwired cell phones in your call, so you didn't need to haul a heavy ass phone around with a crappy antenna. If you knew a real estate agent in the 80s, they probably had one. My mom did. 16. Needing a pager and a cell phone for work. Page to make sure someone is available, so you didn't waste your minutes. 17. Minutes being something you regularly budgeted for and managed. 18. Russia being the bad guys and fear of nuclear war being a regular topic of conversation. 19. The world seeming a lot more mysterious and interesting. I can't overstress this. 20. Hanging out in music stores looking for hidden gems and picking up girls. To name a few. I was born in 76 and can relate. Especially about the world seeming so mysterious. The internet has turned everything into an article on Wikipedia. It feels like the world is much smaller now. We had satellite TV because my dad was a dealer, and I remember watching documentaries about places like Siberia just to see how other people lived. It was fascinating then. 78 here. I feel this thread in my soul. Snow days. The school didn't text or email you. No one called. What did you do? Sat there watching the news with basically a stock ticker going across the bottom. And if you missed your school, oh well, time to spend another 20 minutes or take the trip and see if the doors are open. This was made worse because some schools, like mine, would wait until the last possible minute, meaning you could be at the bus stop waiting because the call was made 5 minutes before the buses start their route. If you were lucky, someone's parent would drive by to say there was a delay. Other times you basically stood there for 20 minutes in the snow before deciding it had to be delayed. But wait, the bus could just be slow, which also wasn't unheard of. Now 45 minutes late, everyone is convinced it must be a delay. So you go home and yes, school has a 2-hour delay and the process may repeat because they wouldn't cancel until the last minute. So it is entirely possible that you had to spend 2 hours in the snow waiting just for the good news. It was the local radio station for us. Always nerve-wracking in the mornings. We were up, eating breakfast, getting dressed, listening to the radio. They'd announce schools in other towns and we'd wait and hope that our school's name was called next. If it was, my dad would usually say something like, well, no school for you, but since you're already up and dressed, go shovel the driveway and bring in wood for the stove. Having to type the entire source code for a computer game in order to play it. My first computer didn't have any disk/tape drive. Our school had a single VIC-20 computer when I was in grade 5. Every class got a turn with the computer once a month, I think. It was placed up the front of the classroom and we were each allowed 10 minutes to use the computer. I had borrowed a book on basic programming from the library and wanted to try a program that would show an animated picture of a butterfly flapping its wings. 99% of the program was a gigantic list of numbers. Imagine typing in an animated GIF by hand, and I got bored after typing for almost my whole 10 minutes, so tried running the program to see what happened. I got a color outline of a butterfly filling the screen, and no way to get back to my program whatsoever. Computer had to be restarted, and I had wasted my entire turn. That was it for the month. Rolling down the window. Encyclopedias. Not knowing who was calling on the phone. Carrying a quarter, eventually a quarter and a dime, just in case you needed to use a payphone. Putting the TV on channel 3 to play video games or watch a video. Rewinding the tape when the movie was over. Blockbuster Video. Winding cassette tape back into the cartridge. Dreading scratching a CD and having to put up with a track that skipped or entirely didn't play. Making a mixtape or burning a CD, making sure you filled as much space as possible. Not knowing if the pictures you took were good or crap until they were developed. You know, I'm not really old enough to comment on this thread, but growing up in a small prairie town means I got some of these experiences anyway. Rolling the window down manually is something I never thought I'd want back until the day the power windows on my car gave out. My act gave up the ghost ages ago and now I would kill to roll my windows down manually.